Kiera Vaughn didn't expect her Friday morning to start with her boss throwing a glittery invitation on her desk and saying, "You're going to a charity ball tomorrow night. With a millionaire." She blinked. "What?" "It's for the shelter," her boss, Janelle, said, already walking away. "They need more donations. And Victor Zane agreed to attend if we found him a +1. His PR team wants him to look more human." Kiera stared at the invitation like it might bite her. "And you picked me? You're the only one who hasn't pissed off the board this week. Wear something fabulous. Don't say anything weird. Smile." And just like that, Kiera, thrift store loving, dog shelter fundraiser managing, definitely not rich Kiera, was fake dating a millionaire for one night. She didn't even know what the man looked like. She'd heard of Victor Zane, of course. The tech investor who turned a flop startup into a multi-million-dollar empire practically overnight. Rumor was he had no social life, avoided cameras, and had turned down every tabloid interview for the last 5 years. Half the internet thought he was a recluse. The other half thought he was secretly married to a supermodel. And yet here she was, about to be his very public fake girlfriend. Saturday night came fast. The hotel lobby was a blur of crystal chandeliers, floor-length gowns, and champagne flutes. Kiera tugged at the off-the-shoulder black dress Janelle had picked for her rented, of course, and tried not to trip in heels she definitely wasn't used to. Then a man stepped out of a sleek Blacktown car, and the world got real quiet. Victor Zane. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a sharp midnight blue tuxedo that probably cost more than her apartment's rent for a year. But it wasn't the wealth that hit her, it was the look in his eyes. Sharp, watchful, like he noticed everything and trusted nothing. He walked straight toward her. "You're Kiera?" he asked, voice deep and calm. She nodded. "You're Victor. No need for formalities. You ready?" She swallowed. "As I'll ever be." He offered his arm. She hesitated, then took it. Inside the ballroom, cameras flashed. People whispered. Waiters wove through the crowd with shrimp skewers and champagne. A jazz band played something smooth and expensive sounding. Victor leaned in just enough to be heard. "We'll stay for 2 hours. Smile, nod, and let me handle the small talk." "Do I look like I can handle small talk?" she whispered back. His lip twitched. "You'll be fine." They made their rounds. He was polite, distant. Charisma turned to low volume. But Kiera noticed things. How he asked smart questions. How he gave full attention to whoever he was speaking to, even if they were boring. And how he never once let go of her hand. Halfway through, a woman in diamonds leaned over and said, "Victor, darling, I didn't know you were seeing someone." Victor didn't miss a beat. "Kiera and I met recently. She's unexpected." Kiera raised an eyebrow. "That's one way to describe me." The woman laughed and moved on. Victor looked at her. "You okay? Are you always this formal?" "Yes." "Even in private?" "I don't usually do private." Kiera tilted her head. "That sounds lonely." He didn't answer. Just offered her another glass of champagne. They stepped out onto the balcony to breathe. The city lights sprawled below them, glittering like the inside of a jewelry box. "You don't like these things, do you?" she asked. "No, then why come?" He looked out at the skyline. "Because sometimes the right photo at the right event keeps certain people off your back." "You mean investors?" He looked at her. Really looked. "You're not what I expected." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" "I haven't decided yet." They stood there in silence until she added, "You don't have to pretend with me, you know." "I'm not pretending. You're playing a part. I can see it." Victor turned toward her, slower this time. "And what part are you playing?" "I'm the broke nonprofit girl who is told to keep you company and not say anything stupid." "You're doing a terrible job at that." She grinned. "Thanks." Then something shifted. Maybe it was the way the wind tangled a strand of hair across her cheek, and he brushed it away without thinking. or how his hand lingered a second too long. Or maybe it was the silence thick with something that hadn't been there an hour ago. He stepped closer. You're not boring. Nope. Never was. And you're not intimidated. Not even a little. Victor's gaze dropped to her lips. She felt her heartbeat spike. Are you planning on kissing me, Mr. Zane? He didn't smile. I'm thinking about it. She didn't move. What's stopping you? He paused. You're not like the others. Neither are you. And then he kissed her. It wasn't polite or staged or for the cameras. It was real. Warm. Slow. Surprising. When he pulled back, he looked like he wasn't sure what just happened. And neither was she. I didn't expect that, he said quietly. Kiera swallowed. Neither did I. They stood there, both breathing a little too fast, like something had cracked open between them. He finally said, I was supposed to drop you off after this. Right. But I don't want to. She blinked. What do you want? He hesitated. Dinner. Somewhere quiet. No cameras. Just us. Kiera's heart thudded. Okay. They didn't go back inside. Instead, they slipped out the side doors, past the valet, and into a sleek black car that waited like it had been summoned by magic. Victor held the door for her. You like Italian? I like anything that isn't served on a silver tray by someone who keeps calling me madam. He let out the softest laugh. Noted. They drove through the city, past the glitter and noise, until they pulled into a quiet street lit by string lights overhead. The restaurant didn't even have a sign, just a heavy wooden door and warm golden light spilling through the windows. Inside, they got a table in the back. No one stared. No one whispered. It felt normal. He ordered wine without looking at the menu. She picked pasta because it was the only thing she knew how to pronounce. Over dinner, they talked. Not about money or events or press, but about music and bad first jobs, and how she once tried to adopt a dog that turned out to be a coyote. Victor listened. Like, really listened. And he told her things, too. About how he didn't grow up rich. About how he never meant to run a company. About how sometimes he felt like he'd built a glass house and just kept waiting for it to crack. By the time dessert came, Kiera had completely forgotten this started as a fake date. And when he walked her to the car, he didn't try to kiss her again. He just looked at her like he didn't want to let go. Tonight was supposed to be a one-time thing, he said. Right. But I think I want to see you again. She smiled. I think I want that too. Then he leaned in, brushed her cheek with his fingers, and said, You're dangerous. Kiera laughed. You have no idea. And as the car pulled away, she realized something terrifying and wonderful. She was in trouble. Because she hadn't just fake dated a millionaire. She might actually be falling for him. Kiera wasn't the type to overthink a kiss. But by Sunday afternoon, she was pacing the tiny kitchen in her apartment, replaying every second of the night before. The balcony. The way he'd looked at her like he wasn't used to wanting something and didn't know what to do with it. The fact that he'd asked to see her again and meant it. She hadn't heard from him since. She told herself she didn't care. That this whole thing had started as a way to make the shelter look good. That she knew better than to fall for someone with a skyline view and a personal driver. But when her phone buzzed late that evening with a number she didn't recognize, her breath caught. Is this Kiera Vaughn? The voice asked. Polished. Female. Professional. This is she. Mr. Zane asked me to arrange transportation for you tomorrow evening. He'll be picking you up at 7 sharp. She hesitated. Transportation to where? He said to tell you it's a surprise. Will you be available? Yes. Wonderful. Please be ready at your address. A driver will be waiting. The line went dead before she could ask anything else. She stared at the phone like it had asked her to decode a riddle. By the next evening, she was standing on her front steps in a soft navy blouse and the nicest jeans she owned, which still had a tiny fray at the hem. She didn't know whether to expect a crowded restaurant or a private rooftop. But when a sleek black SUV pulled up and a man in a tailored suit stepped out to open the door for her, she knew it wasn't going to be casual. "Miss Vaughn," he said with a nod. She slid in. "Where are we going?" He didn't answer. The drive was long. Past the city. Past the lights. Past anything familiar. When the car finally slowed, Kiera looked out the window and blinked. They were driving up a winding hill lined with olive trees and lanterns. At the top was a glass-fronted villa that looked like it belonged in a magazine spread titled "Places You'll Never Afford." The door opened before she could fully process it. Victor stepped out in a charcoal button-up and slacks. No tie, sleeves casually rolled. His hair was slightly tousled, like he'd run his hands through it one too many times. "You brought me to a house?" she asked as she stepped out. "It's a winery, technically," he said. "I needed to get out of the city. Figured you might too." "You own this?" He didn't answer, which she took as a yes. Victor led her through double doors into a wide open space framed by floor-to-ceiling windows. Long wooden beams stretched across the ceiling. A modern fireplace flickered in the corner. A table for two sat near the glass, set with silver cutlery and flickering candles. Kiera turned in a slow circle. "This is insane. I thought you might like it."
Ida.
"I just didn't expect it." Victor gave a small nod and gestured toward the table. "You hungry?" She sat. "Starving." Dinner was wild mushroom risotto with truffle oil and something involving figs and goat cheese that she couldn't pronounce. There was wine, of course, deep red and poured from a bottle labeled in French. She waited until the server left before leaning in. "So, why here?" "I don't take people here." "That doesn't answer the question." He studied her for a long moment. "I didn't want company tonight. I wanted you." Kiera's pulse jumped. She set her glass down carefully. "You don't seem like the type who does anything without a reason." "I don't." "So, what's the reason?" Victor looked out the window. "After the ball, I couldn't stop thinking about you." "Because I'm unpredictable?" "Because you're real." Kiera didn't know what to do with that. So she changed the subject. "How did this place happen?" "My brother," he said, surprising her. "He wanted a vineyard. I bought the land for him. After he passed, it sat empty for a while. Then I renovated it." She didn't speak right away. "I'm sorry." "It was a long time ago." "Still." He looked at her again, quieter this time. "He was the only person who ever called me out when I was being an idiot. Sounds like someone I'd get along with." Victor's eyes softened. "You would've." They talked for hours. About things that had nothing to do with money or strategy or public image. About childhood memories and favorite books and why she'd rather foster dogs than own one permanently. The conversation wandered like a lazy stream, and somehow, nothing felt forced. After dessert, something with honey and lavender that melted on her tongue, Victor stood. "Come with me." He led her outside onto a wide stone terrace. The vineyard stretched below them like a sea of shadows. Above, the stars were so clear it looked like someone had poured glitter across a black canvas. He pulled a remote from his pocket, pressed a button, and soft music drifted from hidden speakers. Then he turned to her and held out a hand.
Kiera laughed.
"You want to dance?"
"No cameras."
"No audience. Just us." She hesitated. He waited. Then she stepped into his arms. They moved slowly, barely swaying. The music wrapped around them like a whisper. She could feel the warmth of his chest through his shirt, the way his fingers curled at her waist, the steady rhythm of his breathing. "I don't know what this is," she said, her voice barely audible. "Neither do I. But it doesn't feel fake." It never was. Kiera looked up at him. "Then why keep pretending like it was only about the ball?" Victor exhaled. "Because I've spent years keeping everyone at arm's length." "And you walked in and didn't ask permission to get close." "Because you didn't scare me." "You should." I don't scare easy. He stopped moving. Then you're either brave or foolish. Probably both. Victor leaned down until their foreheads touched. I don't want this to be one night, or 1 week, or something I look back on and regret not chasing. Then chase it. He kissed her again, slower this time,
Deeper.
like he wasn't afraid of what it meant. When they broke apart, she whispered, "What happens now?" "I start making room for something I didn't think I'd ever want. And me? You keep being impossible to ignore." They stood there, wrapped in moonlight and the scent of lavender from the nearby fields, neither of them needing to fill the silence. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't forever. But it was real. And for two people who'd started with a lie, that meant everything. By the time the car returned to take her home, Kiera didn't ask when she'd see him again, because she already knew. He would call. And next time, it wouldn't be for a show. It would be because he wanted her in his world for real. Kiera stepped into the gallery and immediately questioned her outfit. Not because it wasn't appropriate Victor had sent it, after all, but because she couldn't stop thinking about how it had arrived, boxed in tissue paper, delivered by a driver who said nothing except, "He said you'd know what to do with this." It was a deep plum jumpsuit, tailored to her body in a way that made her feel taller, sharper, almost dangerous. And the moment she'd zipped it up, she understood. Victor didn't just give gifts, he made statements. The gallery buzzed with soft conversation and clinks of champagne flutes. Abstract sculptures in polished steel curved toward the ceiling, and massive canvases dripped with color that looked like movement frozen in time. The event was invitation only, some kind of exclusive exhibition that hadn't even been officially announced yet. Victor stood near the far wall, speaking with an older man in a charcoal vest that didn't seem capable of wrinkling. But even in a room full of sharp suits and curated elegance, Victor stood out. Not because he tried to, but because he didn't. He spotted her before she could wave and broke away without hesitation. "You came," he said, voice low and even, but his eyes gave away something more. "You invited me." That's not always a guarantee. She tilted her head. "You weren't sure I'd say yes?" "I wasn't sure you'd want to be seen with me in public again." Kiera blinked. "Why wouldn't I?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he gestured toward a quieter corner of the gallery where a bench curved beneath a massive installation of mirrored panels. As they walked, the crowd gave them space not because they knew who she was, but because they knew who he was. When they sat, Victor leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "My father called this morning." Kiera folded her hands in her lap. "I didn't know you still spoke." "We don't. Not unless there's something he wants." She waited. "There's a merger happening in Zurich. He's pushing me to take the lead. Wants me to fly out next week." Kiera tried to keep her face neutral. "How long would you be gone?" "A few weeks. Maybe longer." "Do you want to go?" "I want to not need to." She looked at him carefully. "And where do I fit into that?" Victor turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You don't. Not in his world. Which is exactly why I want you in mine." Kiera swallowed. "That sounds like a line." "It's not." "Then what is it?" "It's me realizing I haven't let anyone matter in a long time. Until now." She felt the ground shift beneath her slightly. "I don't want this to be a pause," she said. "I don't do limbo well." "You won't have to. I'm not asking you to wait. I'm asking you to come with me." She stared. "To Zurich?" "Yes." She blinked. "You want me to drop everything and fly across the world with you like it's no big deal?"
No.
"I want you to trust that I wouldn't ask unless I meant it." Kiera looked down at her knotted fingers. "I run a shelter. I don't exactly have a flexible schedule. And I don't know how to live out of fancy hotels. I have an apartment there. It's quiet. No staff unless I ask. No events. Just space. And what I'd stay there while you're in negotiations." You'd stay there while we figure out what this is. I won't be in meetings 24 hours a day. She studied his face, trying to find any sign of insincerity. There was none. Then say it plain, Victor. What are you actually asking? He leaned closer, voice low and certain. I'm asking you to let this be real. Her chest tightened. And if I say yes, then I make room in my life for you. Fully. Not just on weekends. Not just at events. And if I say no, I hope you'll at least let me prove why you should reconsider. Before she could answer, a woman approached, tall, elegant, and familiar in a way that made Kiera's stomach twist. Victor, she said, voice smooth as poured wine. Didn't expect to see you here tonight. He stood. Charlotte. Of course. The ex-girlfriend. The one Janelle had warned her about in hushed tones after discovering Victor's relationship history read like a Forbes column. Charlotte's eyes flicked to Kiera. You didn't mention you had company. Victor's hand moved subtly to Kiera's shoulder. Kiera, this is Charlotte. Charlotte, Kiera. Charlotte's smile was thin. Lovely to meet you. I've heard nothing about you. Kiera lifted her chin. That's probably because I'm not part of his past. Charlotte gave a light laugh. No, I imagine you're something new. How refreshing for him. Victor's tone sharpened. We were just leaving. Oh, don't go on my account. But he was already guiding Kiera through the crowd, not pausing until they reached the exit. Outside, the night air wrapped around them like a welcome change. Was she always like that? Kiera asked once they reached the car.
No.
She used to be worse. Kiera gave a dry laugh. Is that supposed to make me feel better? I stopped letting people like her shape my life a long time ago. Then why did she still get to rattle you? He didn't answer at first. Then, because she reminds me of who I used to be. And I don't like being reminded. Kiera looked out the window as the car pulled away from the curb. You should know that I won't follow you across the world if I'm expected to disappear the moment someone like that shows up. I wouldn't ask you to, and I won't become a shadow to make your life easier. I wouldn't want that either. She turned to him. Then tell me why you picked me, honestly. Victor's jaw tightened, then relaxed. Because you're the only person I've met who doesn't orbit around who I am.
You challenge me.
You make me question things I haven't thought about in years. And because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm performing. She exhaled slowly. That's a good answer. I meant every word. Kiera nodded once. Then I need 48 hours. If I'm going to upend my life, I want to do it clean. Victor didn't try to convince her. He didn't press. He just said, I'll wait. When the car pulled up to her building, he stepped out and opened the door himself. But instead of leaning in for a kiss, he reached into his jacket and handed her a black velvet box.
She stared at it.
This better not be what I think it is. It's not a ring. She opened it slowly. Inside was a thin gold bracelet, simple except for a single charm and etched compass. He said, So you'll always know where home is. Kiera looked up at him, heart thudding. And where is that exactly? Victor didn't hesitate. Wherever you are. She stepped out of the car, bracelet in hand, and didn't look back until she reached her door. He was still standing there, waiting. And this time, she knew something for certain. If she said yes, it would be the start of something she couldn't undo. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what she wanted. Kiera slid her phone into her bag and stepped out of the shelter's office, heart pounding. She'd made her decision. Not in some grand, cinematic moment, but in the quiet certainty that had built over 2 days, the kind that didn't come from flowers or lavish villas, but from the way Victor Zane had looked at her when he said, Wherever you are. She hadn't told anyone at the shelter yet. That would come later, after she figured out how to transition her role without letting the work fall apart. But she'd cleared her schedule, made arrangements for her volunteers, and packed a small suitcase, now resting at her feet by the lobby door.
The car pulled up exactly on time.
The driver opened the door without a word, and she climbed in, the bracelet on her wrist catching the late afternoon light. Victor was waiting at the private terminal, standing beside a sleek jet that looked like it had never known turbulence. He wore a dark coat, his expression unreadable until he saw her. Then something subtle shifted, not a smile, but a quiet kind of relief that softened the lines around his mouth. "You came," he said as she approached. "I said I'd need 48 hours, she replied. "I took 47. He reached for her bag and carried it himself, despite the waiting assistant hovering nearby.
No cameras.
No press. Just him, her, and the open sky. Inside the jet, everything was quiet luxury, cream leather seats, wood-paneled accents, and a tray already set with chilled water and a dish of candied orange peels. She didn't sit right away. "Before we take off," she said, "there's something I need to ask." Victor turned from the window. "Anything. Is this just a trip to you?" A pause between boardrooms and billion-dollar deals? "No, then what is it?" He stepped closer. "It's the beginning." Kiera searched his face. "You're sure?" "I've never been more." She finally sat, her pulse steadying in a way it hadn't in days. As the plane began to taxi, she laced her fingers through his.
He didn't pull away.
Zurich was colder than she expected, crisp air that bit at her cheeks and made her grateful for the coat Victor had insisted she bring. The apartment was exactly what he'd described: minimal, modern, quiet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the lake, and a fireplace flickered to life the moment they stepped inside. He didn't show her around. Instead, he walked to the kitchen, opened a cabinet, and pulled out a worn recipe book. "I used to cook," he said. "Before everything got complicated." Kiera leaned on the counter. "You're telling me you know how to make something that doesn't involve truffle oil?" He flipped a page. "My brother's lasagna.
He used to swear by it."
"I haven't tried since he—" Victor trailed off, then looked up. "I thought maybe we could make it together." So they did. It wasn't perfect. He forgot to drain the noodles. She accidentally used the wrong kind of cheese. They laughed through it, hands dusted in flour, sauce splattered on the hem of her shirt. And when they sat down to eat, the kitchen smelling like garlic and tomatoes, it tasted like something warm and real. Over the next few days, they fell into a rhythm that didn't feel borrowed from someone else's life. Mornings started with coffee on the balcony. Afternoons, she explored the city, while he attended meetings. Evenings belonged to them: quiet dinners, long walks along the lake, late-night debates about books and music, and whether dogs or cats made better companions. But it wasn't all easy. On the fourth night, she walked into the living room to find Victor pacing, phone pressed to his ear. His jaw was tight, his voice clipped. "I told you, I'm not accepting the terms unless the board includes full retention rights. I don't care if that delays the merger." He ended the call and turned, surprised to see her. "Everything okay?" she asked. "They're pushing back. My father's team wants to move faster. They think I'm distracted." "Are you?" He didn't answer right away. "I've never made decisions with someone else in mind before. And now I don't want to make any without you." Kiera crossed the room. "Then let them wait. You've built enough to stand still for 5 minutes without the world collapsing. You think I've built something worth standing on? I think you've built a fortress. But maybe it's time to build something else." Victor didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his pocket and held out a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it slowly. It was a proposal, a plan to expand the shelter's operations internationally, starting with a pilot program in Zurich. Funding already allocated. Logistics mapped. Her name listed as Director of Operations. She looked up, stunned. "You did all this?" "I wanted to give you a reason to stay longer. But I didn't want to do it without your permission. You'd run this by me before making it real? I'm not in the habit of making decisions for people I care about." Her voice caught. "Victor." He stepped closer, pulling something else from his pocket. A small box. Not velvet this time, smooth, matte, simple. He opened it to reveal a single diamond set in a thin gold band. Kiera's breath hitched. Victor didn't kneel. He didn't need to. I'm not asking for a performance. Or a perfect life. I'm asking for you. The real you. The one who tells the truth even when it's uncomfortable. The one who challenges me. The one who walked into that ballroom and changed everything. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't blink them away. I didn't expect this, she whispered. Any of it. Neither did I. But I want it. All of it.
And I want you.
Not for an event. Not for a season. For every version of my life that comes next. Will you marry me? She didn't hesitate. Yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and for once, he didn't guard his expression. Relief, joy, and something deeper flickered across his face, unfiltered. They didn't celebrate with champagne or fireworks. They curled on the couch, wrapped in a wool blanket, her head on his chest, the fire casting gold across the room. Later that week, Victor held a press conference not for the merger, not for investors, but for the shelter's expansion. He introduced Kiera as the woman leading the charge, never once mentioning their engagement. She wasn't his plus one or a side note. She was the story. The media didn't know what to do with that. And Victor didn't care. Back in New York, she handed in her resignation with a quiet smile and a hug from Janelle, who only whispered, "You better come back and visit with a tan and a new last name." They were married 6 months later. Not in a cathedral. Not under a chandelier. But in the vineyard, beneath the stars, with the scent of lavender in the air and music playing softly from hidden speakers. He didn't promise perfection.
She didn't ask for it.
They promised to choose each other on the hard days, the quiet days, and every unexpected moment in between. And that night, as they danced beneath the same stars where it all began, Victor leaned in and said, "Still dangerous." Kiera smiled. Still worth it. And he kissed his wife like he'd never stopped choosing her. The first real test of their future came not from scandal or secrets, but from silence. It had been 3 weeks since Kiera and Victor returned from Zurich. 3 weeks of whispered congratulations in corridors, of the media buzzing with speculation about the mysterious woman who had Victor Zane's attention and now, his ring. 3 weeks of building something that resembled a life, shared mornings in his penthouse, meetings about the shelter's expanded operations, and nights filled with quiet, unspoken relief that they'd found each other at all. But now she stood in the center of Victor's Manhattan office, staring at a wall of framed patents and contracts, her arms crossed and her mind racing. "You canceled the meeting with the city council?" she asked without turning around. Victor leaned against the edge of his desk, his posture deceptively relaxed. They pushed it back. Said they needed more time to review the zoning proposals. "Did they say that, or did you?" I asked for the delay. Kiera turned slowly. "Why?" "Because the merger talks are heating up again. If I don't keep my hand on the pulse, they'll try to run it without me." She studied him. "You said you were stepping back from that deal." I said I wouldn't let it consume everything. I didn't say I'd abandon it. You didn't say you'd postpone projects we're building together, either. His jaw tightened just slightly. "This is temporary." So was Zurich. Victor pushed off the desk and crossed to her. "You think I'm choosing business over you. I think you're slipping back into the world that never made room for anyone else," she said. "And I'm not going to fight to fit into spaces that were never designed for two." He exhaled through his nose, silent for a beat. "You're right." That stopped her. "I've spent years making decisions that only benefited me," he continued. "And I thought if I gave you a piece of my life, this office, the projects, the funding, that it would be enough. But I'm realizing now you don't want a corner of my world. You want to build one with me." Kiera softened, but didn't step forward. "I want us to be a team." not a series of scheduled appearances between meetings. Victor nodded once, slowly. Then let's build it. From scratch. She tilted her head. You mean it? I've already started making calls. I'm restructuring everything. I'm not walking into our marriage with one foot still buried in an empire I can't escape. Kiera's eyes flickered to the wall of accolades. You built this. I did. And now I want to build something else.
With you.
Something that doesn't require separation to survive. That night, they didn't go out.
No rooftop dinners, no celebratory champagne.
They stayed in, barefoot and tangled in each other on the couch, letting the quiet fill the spaces that used to be barriers. In the weeks that followed, the changes came fast. Victor sold off one of his oldest tech holdings not for profit, but to free up bandwidth. He appointed new leadership in 2 divisions, stepped down from unnecessary advisory boards, and handed over a merger he'd once obsessed over to a trusted partner. People called it reckless. Kiera called it progress. And she wasn't idle either. With the Zurich shelter now fully operational, she began planning the next location, Barcelona. It was ambitious, maybe even a little insane, but for the first time, she had the resources to dream big and the partner to match her. One afternoon, as they reviewed a proposal in the sunlit atrium of the penthouse, Victor set down the folder and said, "We never picked a date." She looked up. "For the wedding?" He nodded. "I assumed we were waiting until the world stopped spinning." He gave a rare, almost boyish smile. "Then let's stop it ourselves." They married in late spring, on the vineyard terrace where they'd first danced under the stars. It was a small ceremony, just 30 people. No press.
No spectacle.
Just the people who mattered. Janelle cried through the entire thing, dabbing her eyes with a napkin she claimed was just for allergies. Victor's assistant, Malcolm, gave a toast that made even Victor laugh out loud, something Kiera had quickly learned was a rare and precious thing. As the sun dipped low, casting gold across the horizon, Victor slipped the ring onto Kiera's finger this time, not as a question, but as a vow sealed in front of everyone who mattered. "I never believed in fate," he said quietly during their first dance. "But I believe in you, and that's enough to rewrite everything." She leaned into him. "I never needed a billionaire. I just needed someone who saw me." "You were never invisible, Kiera." The world just wasn't paying attention. By summer, they were living in both Zurich and New York, dividing their time between foundation work and stolen weekends. They turned the vineyard into a retreat for rescued animals and opened it once a year to couples who couldn't afford fairy tale weddings but deserved them anyway. Victor learned to cook more than lasagna. Kiera learned to take meetings without second-guessing her authority. They argued sometimes about logistics, about timing, about who left the windows open during a storm. But they never let it build. They fought like people who planned to stay. And they made up like people who never forgot what it cost to find each other. One early fall morning, Kiera stood barefoot on the balcony of their Zurich apartment, watching the mist rise over the lake. Victor came up behind her, his arms circling her waist. "There's another offer," he murmured against her shoulder.
"Singapore.
"They want me to speak at a summit." She leaned back into him. "Do you want to go?" "I only want to go if you're going with me." She turned in his arms. "Then I guess we're going to Singapore." He kissed her, slow and sure. They didn't need a map anymore. They carried home in each other's hands. And when people asked how they made it work, how a nonprofit director and a former tech titan managed to build a life that felt both grounded and extraordinary, Kiera always said the same thing. "We stopped pretending love had to fit into our lives. And we started building lives that fit our love." They didn't chase perfection. They chased each other. And they never stopped running toward the next beautiful, impossible thing. Together. Forever.